Hello and welcome to the Not Ready for Primetime Project. I'm Gary Seath, and you're not. Welcome to Bill Swerski's Tournament Talk, Best Bits Part 2. So if you're listening to this, hopefully you've listened to Part 1, or else this may not make any sense. Last week, Thomas and the guys started the tournament for finding SNL's best bits in their first 50 years. We stopped it after going through the first round, and I'm going to let Thomas and the guys pick it up where they left off, starting in round 2.
Back to Region 1, we're in the Sweet 16 now. Buckwheat is Dead versus Lazy Sunday. Let's start with Bill.
Oh, Thomas. This is tough. This is obviously they're all tough. We're talking about such iconic moments in the history of the show. As I said, Buckwheat was my number one, so I'm going to stick with that just for that fact. But you're talking about two really bellwether moments in the history of the show. Lazy Sunday leading us into the next era of pre-tapes, and Buckwheat with what it did, as everything I've already said about that. So I'm going to push Buckwheat through, but only by the slimmest of margins.
All right. I want to go to somebody who I don't know what they're going to pick. So Darin, I want to go to you next.
Oh, wow. All right, here we go. Yeah, this is a tough one. But I think just because I know I used Game Changer before for Dick in a Box, because it really was, but Lazy Sunday truly was.
You can only change the game once.
It changed the game, and then it changed it again. All the games changed. Yeah, I think I'd have to go with Lazy Sunday, just because it is. I mean, I think I remember seeing like some meme online recently talking about how Lazy Sunday built the internet or gave birth to the internet, and which, of course, they're exaggerating, but in a way, they kind of did. Like, it really, like that, because of what that sketch did, and it really kind of, like, it really did have SNL looking more and more into YouTube, and YouTube becoming more and more of a power player to the behemoth that it is today. And, I love Buckwheat is Dead. I think it's a great concept. Again, it's something that SNL doesn't really do anymore today, but I think for, I guess, the history and legacy of SNL, I think I'd have to go with Lazy Sunday.
Compelling points. Brad, did Darin sway you? Did Bill sway you?
I'd like to know how you think I'm voting, Thomas.
I don't know how you're voting. That's why I didn't pick you last. You and Darin, I didn't know where you were going with this. Thank you very much.
I vote Lazy Sunday. This is kind of my Lonely Island pick, I guess. I think a lot of what you guys said for Dick in a Box, I feel for Lazy Sunday, changing the game, importance to the show. I give it to the first. I give it to Lazy Sunday over Dick in a Box. It kills me that if this wins, we're getting rid of Eddie Murphy so early because of other people's poor voting in the first round, but I have to go Lazy Sunday.
Yeah, John, do I even have to ask?
No, you don't. But I will say I will use my time for telling Bill what a party foul he just made by saying that the only reason he's picking Eddie Murphy here is because he decided before the podcast that was his number one pick. You gave You got to
go with the girl that brung you, John. And this was my pick. Now, I'm saying it's very, very close. And in any other scenario, I probably would go with Lazy Sunday, but it was my number one pick before the show.
Listen, Bill, Eddie's very happy to hear about your loyalty. He's very happy. He thanks you greatly.
He's on the call right now. Yes.
Well, let me just say that Lazy Sunday changed my life. I have never looked at my body the same after watching Lazy Sunday.
Did you just read the wrong note? Hold on. Did you just read the wrong notes for Dick in a Box? Is that what happened? Can we go back and put Celebrity Hot Tub back in the second round?
You can look at your body differently multiple times. You've been a teenage boy, Brad.
Yeah.
Yes. I will say I have performed some of the worst rapping that has ever been done on camera in the history of humanity because these guys led me to do so. So, how can you not put this through?
Dear God, dig
Thomas,
those up.
Can we find a way to put that in the show notes, please? This video John speaks of.
Please dig those up, John. Gosh. Lazy Sunday, unsurprisingly, advances to the final 8, where let's see who it'll face. We have Video Will, who pulled off an upset, defeating White Like Me in the first round. Some people on the panel are crossing their arms and pouting. Video Will taking on Presidential Debate 2000. That was Will Ferrell as George W. Bush, Daryl Hammond as Al Gore, and Chris Parnell in an unrecognizable, amazing makeup, I should say. Chris Parnell, hard to recognize except for his voice. So Video Will, Presidential Debate 2000. John, where are you going?
So Bill said before that there's fun Gore, bad Gore, but there's also Al Gore. And and the truth is that
he's the best in the
business. This show this show changed the dictionary because we coined a new term in strategery, so much so that the Bush administration ended up using the term in the White House whenever George Bush was talking about strategy. And to me, this is the pinnacle of all debate sketches. I know you could certainly make an argument for season 14 or even season 2. I think that there are some really fun political moments, but this is the one that I think has lasted the test of time. So for me, this is not only iconic and essential, but one of the best moments in the history of the show.
All right, Darin, do you agree with John here?
Yeah, I do. It's been a while since I've seen this one, but yeah. So I had to like rewatch it, and I had no idea that was Chris Parnell. I thought it was, I don't know, like maybe Jeff Richards or something. I don't know who it was. I was like, who they get to do this? But yeah, I think I would vote for this as well. Just for the fact, just for strategery alone, the fact that they changed the dictionary through a sketch. I mean, you gotta give it just because of that. I mean, I also love the little gag in the beginning where Chris Parnell I guess he was saying that the Republicans, the Bush, bought pay-per-view for everybody in the red states, and then he was just reading off the TV listings what they could watch. Like, oh, that's pretty hilarious. So yeah, for that, I think I'd give it to this presidential debate for sure.
All right, I want to see if Jan Hooks and Video Will can hang on. So I'm going to go to Bill Kenney to see.
I am not a partisan in the strictest sense. My girl Jan is, always in my heart. But I mean, this is what these guys have already said. An important moment in the political history of the show, an important moment in the period history of the show. Not only, I mean, so many times they try to shove catchphrases down our throat. We've seen it a million times, but sometimes they just take their own life, and strategery is one of those. Lockbox, of course, is still something that you can hear people say. And you have the two titans in Hammond and Farrell going toe to toe against each other. It's fantastic on every level, and yeah, I've got to move it forward.
All right, Brad, is Video Will the Jan Hooks? Like, is it your favorite Jan Hooks, or do you have something else?
Favorite Jan Hooks has either got to be the waitress sketch, or I love the Sweeney sisters. I think her and Dunn are just so good. Which, in looking at my list, is a sin I didn't have. I think I had Sweeney sisters on like my huge list, but didn't make my my top 20. Yeah, I had White Like Me going on. Full disclosure, I had White Like Me beating this in my original bracket, which is odd because in my initial ranking, I actually had the debate sketch ranked higher than White Like Me. But when I looked at the two compared, I thought White Like Me would be better. But with this matchup, I'd go with the debate. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so for the sports fans out there, it might be like if you see a wicked upset in the first round, and then the second round, the favorite just trounces, and you're like, oh, maybe it would have been more fun if there wasn't an upset in the first round. Now, I don't know. But but regardless, Lazy Sunday's taking on the Presidential Debate 2000. It's going to Region 2, where we have Goodnight Saigon, very beloved amongst all of us, taking on Matt Foley and motivational speaker, the first one with Christina Applegate as the host. So I want to start. Let's call on Darin.
Okay, up there it goes. Yeah. it's Matt Foley motivational speech. It's got to be, just because it, like, when you watch that sketch, it's really is, you see like the birth of a star, like, right in front of you. Like, it was so wild. Like, you see, like, basically, like, Chris Farley just going for it, getting these huge laughs. You, to the point where Christina Applegate and David Spade are on the verge of breaking, just because he's right in their face, just screaming these words. And it's so wild. It's weird because, like, this is like a sketch where they did it multiple times before, but it was never as big as the first time they did it. It was like it's almost like a band where their very first album was so huge and groundbreaking. All the other albums after that just really don't quite measure up, because people always compare it to the first album. Mm-hmm. And it was sort of like that, I'd say. But like, yeah, and then the applause he got at the end of it, like, it was like the audience knew. It was like the audience knew they were seeing something new and fresh. And like, oh, we just saw history here. I mean, my God, like, Matt Foley, motivational speaker. That's the one.
Brad, would this Matt Foley sketch have been funny without the breaking?
Yeah, it would have.
Okay. I'm just checking. I'm just checking.
You Debbie Downer fans
just
out there.
checking.
Yes. You know why? Because you had one of the most iconic cast members in one of his most iconic roles. And he's so good. And, you know, this is a great example too. So many of the great sketches and or characters we see are things people bring with them, you know, from Groundlings or Second City. I think this is a great example of something Chris had done in Second City. Like, he knew it so well, and to finally see it on the show, he just sells it. I agree to Darin's point. They never replicate what he does the first time. And that's why I think this one's got to go, because they were always chasing that initial hit and they couldn't do it because it was just so good. And it's an easy vote for me, motivational speaker.
Easy vote, John. Easy vote for you?
It's not an easy vote for me, and I'm going to go the other way, because I do believe that motivational speaker is one of the more iconic sketches in the history of the show, and the visual of Farley dressed as Matt Foley is like such a great visual. The sketch itself is really good. The subsequent sketches are not, but this first one is amazing. So it's definitely one that I probably put through in other matchups. But the major difference for me between these two is that this sketch, the Matt Foley sketch, is one that he had created prior to being on the show and replicated in the SNL format. So basically, like, took what he did at Second City, brought it to SNL. Goodnight Say Gone is something that could only happen through Saturday Night Live, in that you have all of these people like Paul Rudd and Hathaway and people who have hosted, you know, getting them all back for the finale, for this big moment, as, you know, almost as if it's the end of a play and we're going to get everybody who was there throughout the season to take a bow, shows you the power and growth of this show through the years. And to me, it is just so like emotional and powerful for me that I think it's more epic of a moment, despite the fact that the Foley sketch being so good. So I'm sure this is a very hot take, but for me, I would put that through as my best bit. Goodnight Saigon.
Yeah. Wow, John, that was very convincing. Bill, did it convince you?
It did not. Listen, I'll talk about Goodnight Saigon for a second, because I didn't get to the last round. This is kind of the pseudo goodbye to Hammond, who is the record holder at this point for most seasons on the show. His friend Will is back in the building. Everything John said, you know, all these people that we get to see in this. It's one of the last times, if not the last time, we see Norm on the show. So there's a lot of great things going on here. It's definitely my favorite finale moment in the history of the show. But come on. I mean, if you asked 100 non-SNL fans to name one SNL character, I would venture to guess that 60 to 70% of them would say Matt Foley. So he transcends time. He clearly transcends space with the way that he moves.
But they would say Domingo now too. It doesn't make them right.
Yes, but that's more recency bias. That's not, I'm talking just in general. If you asked a bunch of people, and if you asked anybody over 30, they probably wouldn't know who Domingo was outside of our community. So, False. So I'm going with Matt Foley here.
All right, good arguments by John, I think, but Matt Foley, motivational speaker, moves on. It's going to face the winner of our next matchup, the Beatles offer from season 1, episode 18, Lorne to Camera, against Word Association, 2 season 1 battles. Iconic episode, Richard Pryor hosting, iconic sketch from that episode. So I want to start with Brad, season 1 matchup here.
This was surprisingly tough for me. I love word association for everything it is and everything that it can't be now. But I'm going with the upset with the Beatles offer. I think it's because of what it meant to the show being ballsy and putting itself out there and literally just saying, like, we're going to invite the Beatles to come on and think we're good enough to do that. This young show, I think it really helped them get their swagger. I really think it helped them define themselves. You know, you look back at season 1, especially this point in season 1, they weren't a success. You didn't know what was going to be. It really took a lot to have the producer show up and do a direct to camera and be like, we're going to give this bullshit offer to the Beatles for $3,000 and again, it's written so smart. Again, the Ringo joke. I love word association. I think it's one of the greatest sketches of all time. But for what I think Beatles offer meant to the show and in season 1 at that point, I'm going to go Beatles offer.
Interesting. I like Beatles offer, but it seems like Lorne talking to the camera had this like weird hypnotic effect on some of you. That's my surprise of the tournament so far, quite frankly. So Darin, what do you think of these season 1 matchups?
Yeah, I did not see the game going this way. As much as I do like the Beatles offer, it's a great premise, a great sketch. I mean, I think I'd be a fool not to give it to word association. I mean, just because it's ballsy as hell, this sketch. It is daring as hell, this sketch. And it is kind of, I mean, like, it's a sketch that we still talk about today, to this day. It's a sketch that they definitely wouldn't try again nowadays. No, they wouldn't. And it's just really, yes, exactly, no.
You mean Dave Chappelle and Mikey Day wouldn't create this?
I don't.
How great would it be though if they did? Like if they had the balls in the 50th to do this, how great would that be?
Oh my God, I can imagine the think pieces.
Yeah, be the talk of the episode.
It would be. But yeah, I'd have to give it to, because like this. I mean, I feel like after this sketch, just really kind of put the show on the map. I mean, I know that they were growing in popularity like from when they started, but like this one, I think was kind of the talk of the town. Where everybody's like, "Hey, have you seen this show? Have you seen the sketch on the show? This is really like." I think this was the one that kind of solidified their cred as being like the cool hip show that isn't your dad's show type of thing. Yeah. So I think because of that, I would have to give it to Word Association.
Yeah, John, a few months ago, back in September, we talked about this as possibly the like essential sketch of the 70s.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know that the show exists right now and that we're talking about it if this sketch doesn't air, because I just think it was so important to the show in its infancy trying to figure it out. And they sort of nail the format, but they don't get the why do I care about this show until Richard Pryor hosts, where he comes on and changes the game and shows that the show is truly live and can be dangerous, and you get the guy who's turning into the biggest star going head to head with one of the biggest stars in comedy, and there's a lot of racial aspects to this that I think are really interesting in the time that it airs. So for me, again, like I once we get starting into these deeper rounds, I start to think to myself, and I don't have kids yet, but I start to think about like, what are the sketches that I would want to show them for them to truly grasp the show? And I think when they're old enough to properly understand the nuance of this sketch, I would absolutely show it to them. So for me, this is a no-brainer. And it is absolutely blasphemous that Brad would even consider choosing the Beatles offer over it.
Hey, to be fair, I did just show my 4-year-old word association last week, okay? And she loved it.
So you're with me.
Your 4-year-old picked up on the nuances?
She's much smarter than I am.
She's smarter than I am.
So Brad, you showed your 4-year-old the Beatles offer as well?
That's above her. She can't get
Oh.
it. There's too many levels to that. Let's move on. Thomas, moving
Too
on.
I guess it
clever,
wasn't.
John.
I guess it wasn't essential enough for her, Brad.
Oh boy.
This is not essential. This is not Thomas's other
Okay,
show.
counselor, you've made your point.
Oh, it's getting hot.
Bill, it's 2-1. What do you say?
Listen, this is everything everybody said here is true. And this is the two ballsiest sketches of season one, and it's also the two most important sketches or moments of season one. But it's not really close to me either. Word association has to move on. You've got the biggest stand-up comedian in the world, maybe bar George Carlin, and it's the only time that the show ever goes on 7-second delay, and it does change the game. You had a couple episodes before this that were kind of seeing the mold of SNL, but nothing that gets it to this level. Pryor has a moment in this episode with everybody that's special, but this is the most important of them all.
Yeah, so happy that Richard Pryor episode, something from that episode's moving on. It makes sense that this is the one. So we have a heck of a matchup, motivational speaker and word association in the Elite Eight. So Region 3, 15 seed Spelling Bee, a Will Forte gem taking on 2 seed Tom Hanks' 5-timers monologue, which had the bye. That was our introduction to the 5-timers monologue. So I want to start with John here. Spelling Bee, Tom Hanks' 5-timers monologue, both really up your alley.
Yeah, this is tough because these are two of my favorites, but I will go with the Tom Hanks 5-timers monologue. For me, I think this could win this tournament because this is, to me, the first time, and I've described it this way before, that the head starts to eat its tail. It becomes really a show within a show. There's meta moments prior to this with the original cast at the lockers, and you have the whole thing with, Charlie Rocket and getting, who shot CR and all of that. There's moments that lead up to this, but the idea that there is a show within a show here, that we're counting statistics, that, hosting matters, and that there is a fictional world that exists within the world of the show where the greatest host ever do it all hang out with each other, and that everyone who may host in the future will be envious of these hosts and hope to get into this club, to me is maybe the most important creation in the history of the show that will ultimately lead to some really exciting moments for generations to come. So I think that, it'll be hard pressed to find something better than this in the bracket.
All right, Bill, can Will Forte and Tenacious D and Chris Parnell pulled off the upset here?
They can't, to me. Everything that John said and more. I think, the threads throughout the history of the show, for a show that's been on as long as it has, you don't have a lot that go from season 1 to season 50 outside of Live from New York and Weekend Update. And even Weekend Update changed its name, did different things, didn't do it every episode. So this is a moment. Now, we're already 16 seasons in, so it's not from the beginning, but you have one of the most iconic hosts of all time in Tom Hanks doing this. We've already had a bunch of people host 5 times. They've never mentioned this before. So that's part of the beauty and the joke of this all. And the fact that to this day, it's something that most of us super fans think about at the beginning of a season. Who can get into the 5-timers club? So this concept that started in 1990 has continued all the way to 2025 of, having this utmost importance to people who are true fans of the show. Has to move on.
All right, Darin, what do you think about what Bill and John said?
Yeah, I totally agree. We got to put in the 5-timers club just because it's something that it seems like it started as a joke and then it just over time gradually became like a real thing. Like I feel like I remember seeing some documentary about like how like the MTV Awards kind of started off as like kind of a joke in the 80s, and then throughout time it actually became like a real thing, an actual awards show. Like I feel like the 5-timers club is kind of like that. Like the way it started off, kind of paying homage to the history of SNL, like that. In that one sketch, you see like Paul Simon and Elliot Gould and Steve Martin, and then Ralph Nader pops in. This is like so much sort of nods to the past over this thing that is just kind of an elaborate joke, I believe written by Conan O'Brien, who's also in the sketch. But then it actually becomes like a thing that people took seriously, and now it's like sort of part of the history of SNL, and they sort of, in a way, they sort of gave birth to their own legacy and the lore of SNL in a way, which is, I mean, if you think about that, it's incredible. So yes, 5-timers all the way.
Yeah, Brad, Darin brought up like one of my favorite things about the Five Timers Club is it was just like a joke at first. Like, oh, we noticed this is 5th time. Let's do something surrounding that. Like, can you believe like 35 years later, like it took on a life of its own?
But that's the genius of it. I mean, that's why it's so good and it's so special. I'm gonna save a lot of my arguments in case I need them. I agree with Jon. I think this has a chance to run the table, so I'll save my arguments for later rounds. Just a little bit of love again. Spelling Bee again. One of the best 10-to-1 sketches. Will Forte is great. I actually had, when I went back to remind myself and revisit it, the bringing in of Tenacious D at the end of that sketch is just, again, there's all these, you always have these moments where you take an A sketch and you make it A+, and that was it. How do you get that ending? Bring Jack Black out and Tenacious D and sing that song. It's such a good one. I'm sorry to see it go, but it's an easy 5-timers vote.
Yeah, and if and when we do a best episodes bracket, I bet we'll be talking about Spelling Bee again because it came from an iconic episode. Fun trivia about Spelling Bee: 12 Q's in a row, Will Forte said, and I don't think he said any vowels during the entire thing. I didn't hear a vowel in there.
I don't think you did. And I will also say on the SNN this summer, we will be doing the 50 greatest episodes in the history of the show. So I will be very curious where this Jack Black episode lands.
Yeah, amazing episode. So sorry to see you go, Spelling Bee. Tom Hanks' 5-timers Club monologue moves on. It's going to be facing the winner of Black Jeopardy, 10 seed, against Reagan Mastermind, 7 seed from season 12. That was Phil Hartman as Ronald Reagan. This was about 85, 86. So Reagan had been in office for a few years. He was kind of known as like the slower talking, slower moving kind of, but we see a different Reagan here, which was great. I think Bill Kenney's close personal friend, Robert Smigel, was one of the people behind this. So I'm going to start with Bill Kenney to get his vote.
When I talked to Robbie about this, listen, we said it before with Campaign 88, and that is really the bellwether moment of SNL getting back into politics. But this was the seedlings of that. This is coming right at the beginning of season 12. We're about 5-6 episodes in at this point, and SNL has not really touched politics other than some really bad Reagan impressions from like 80 to 86. So, and Phil Hartman, as great as he is, Mount Rushmore, he didn't have an awful lot to do those first few episodes outside of like the Hollywood actor and playing bit parts. This is really the moment we get to see what Phil Hartman's going to become to the show over the next 8 to 9 years. It's really, really important, and it's brilliantly, brilliantly written to go from this doddering old man who's welcoming the Girl Scouts in to, all right, back to work. And it was just so brilliantly done. I can't say enough about it. So it's got to move on for me.
This is the part of the job that I hate. That's like one of my favorite, that always gets me. Brad, what do you think of this matchup?
It's a tough matchup. I love Reagan Mastermind. I think it is a clinic in both writing and performing. Robbie Smigel, as he will now forever be referred to. It's a great sketch. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, Jon, you probably know, isn't this like the week after Robin Williams did the earpiece bit? So it's like they had just done a version of Reagan the week prior, completely different take on Reagan. So to come back the very next week and give it not to the host, but one of the cast members and just watch them knock it out of the park is amazing. I love this sketch, Reagan Mastermind.
Wow. Reagan Mastermind. All right. Yeah. Darin, I'm going to go to you. So we have Black Jeopardy political, but I think it transcended that as well. So both of these like political and sociological kind of sketches. What do you think?
Yeah. This might be the hardest one for the night for me. Jesus, I mean, I do love them both. I mean, Reagan Mastermind. You have Phil Hartman at the, just delivering just some straight heat. A sketch written by Bobby Smiggs, as I like to call him. Because we're tight like that. And damn it, do I want to? I think I'm gonna. I think I still gotta go with Black Jeopardy though, just because.
Nice.
As much as I really do like Reagan Mastermind, and I do love the performance that that Hartman is giving in this, and the writing is great, but I feel like there's just a little bit more there with the Black Jeopardy, just because the concept is so fantastic, and like that twist again, like you don't really kind of see it coming, and this is. Yeah, I might change my mind in a day or two, but like for now, I'm gonna go with Black Jeopardy.
So we're at 2-1.
Don't let the fact that Bill Kenney has a close personal relationship with the writer of Reagan Mastermind sway your vote. I like how you were independent. Well played.
And I think Darin knows him better because he's able to call him Bobby. That's like one step closer. Yeah.
Bobby.
Yeah. What do you think, John?
Yeah, I got to go with the sketch written by my friend, the Bobster. For me, look, there's a couple of really compelling points why I think that Reagan Mastermind is a amazing sketch. Number one, it's that for the first time since Chevy played Ford all the way back at the beginning of the show, we now have an SNL version of an impression of a president. We understand the character that Reagan is through the lens of SNL. And that's something that will continue on for generations because, with Aykroyd, Jimmy Carter, he's just playing him Southern, through the Ebersol era, they don't really cover politics very well. So to me, this is the first time that we're like, oh, okay, now we're going to look forward to seeing this Reagan impression week after week. And that will lead eventually to all of the Clinton stuff that we're going to get and so on. So for me, this is a really important sketch. This sketch also takes place in an episode with not one, not two, but three hosts, the three amigos. And it is so good that they have to put this one in the episode without any host in it. And, for me, it is just an absolutely fantastic sketch that is in contention for one of the best political sketches of all time. So as much as I respect and love Black Jeopardy, especially as a more modern sketch that had something to say, this sketch is too good to not put through.
All right, perfect. So my amigo Roberto Smigel will be very happy with this. Reagan Mastermind advances to take on the Tom Hanks Five Timers Club. Region 4, Dick in a Box, seated 19th, will take on Behind the Music, Blue Oyster Cult, better known as the Cowbell sketch from season 25. Will Ferrell, Christopher Walken, the Cowbell sketch. John, I want to start with you. This is a behemoth, I think.
This is a really tough matchup. I mean, we're talking about two really iconic sketches here, and Christopher Walken's more cowbell. Jimmy Horatio trying to keep it together. Will Ferrell, hiking up the shirt a little bit more. There's so many moments about this that justify why it's been so well regarded and written about. You're going to the wrong person here to defend it though, because this is like. Dick in a Box is the hometown team for me. And like I said, has done so much for me personally. So, I can understand why, unlike some of the other matchups, I can understand why my competitors here may put the other one through. But for me, Dick in a Box is too important to the history of the show and too good. It's probably my most listened to song on my iTunes for me not to put it through. So speaking of Behind the Music.
Bill, what say you?
Yeah, nobody's saying you're going to want that dick. They're saying you're going to want that.
Oh, yeah. Speak for yourself, Bill.
Wow.
SNL related, sir. Come on. Wow.
The gloves are off in the second round. I love it.
We are talking about a sketch so iconic that it got its own documentary about on Peacock just this past week. And to see the behind the scenes and kind of the raw footage of that as it led up to everything that we know it to be and kind of the little engine that could, he tried to get it into the Norm show when Norm hosted. Can you imagine Norm Macdonald playing the walk and roll? Like, that's insane. Everything came together here. Will's genius, Walken, one of the all-time best hosts, coming back with his own personal signature on this. It has to be Cowbell.
It has to be Cowbell. 1-1. Darin, what do you think?
Damn it! You went to me first. All right.
I
know. I was hoping you wouldn't.
I can sense the slightest, as George Costanza would say. I sense the slightest human suffering, and I pounce on it.
God. I mean, forget what I said last time. This is definitely the toughest one because both of these sketches, like again, they're both iconic sketches, both music sketches, both sketches that still people understand and reference to this day. Like if you say more Cowbell, people know what you're talking about. If you say Dick in a Box, people know what you're talking about. There's like all these sketches are like so similar now that I really think about it. I mean, you say, Behind the Music has its own it's a sketch that's so good it has its own documentary. Well, I mean, you could make a documentary about Dick in a Box. I could probably see
it would be a dickumentary.
There
yeah, John's probably working on it as we speak.
John's just showing off at this point.
I know. Look at him. It's nothing but heat. This guy. It's all buckets.
John, put that box down. It's not a visual medium.
You gotta have more dicks.
Really explore the space. But yeah, I mean, both of these sketches are like, they're both really good. They're almost like equal.
This is the conceit of the show, Darin. You got to pick.
I know. Okay, I will, because it won an award. I'll say Dick in a Box. Like I feel that it won like a Grammy or a
Jesus.
But
Great point, Darin. Great point. Crush that one.
Which, but then again, it's by the slimmest of margins because, like, again, the Behind the Music, everything about it is fantastic. Again, they caught lightning in a bottle with that. You have Will Ferrell in his tight shirt. You have Christopher Walken being his most Walkeniest. The line "I got a fever" and the only prescription is more Cowbell. Are
you talking yourself out of your vote right now?
Maybe I just might.
We need
Thomas,
a final answer.
Shut it down.
I think he's voting for Celebrity Hot Tub.
We're gonna mark that as a vote for Dick in a Box. And even though Fallon breaks in Behind the Music, it's still a solid sketch. But I'll give it slightly to Dick Box. All right.
Let's
John getting everybody over to his side for the anti-Fallon vote. I'm sticking with you, Jimmy.
Yeah, Brad.
Was the sketch as funny if they didn't break? Because they broke in the sketch. That's part of the sketch. Was it not funny because he broke?
No, the sketch was actually funny besides the breaking. The difference between Debbie Downer and this.
Look, I don't want to fight anybody. I don't want no problems. I don't want no problems.
All right, Brad. Got to make a choice.
Have you voted yet tonight, Thomas?
Have I? Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple times.
Did you? Oh, I've paid zero.
You're just wanting to put me in a hard spot.
No, Behind the Music is my vote. I remember this era, as I believe a few of you, if not all of us, do, of like SNL coming back and from after postseason 20 and what it was. And I remember this sketch, Behind the Music, Cowbell, and like what it was in real time at the time. And it was amazing. It was blew everything else out of the water. So it's an easy vote, Behind the Music.
All right, 2-2. So I get the vote. I also remember watching Cowbell in real time too. If I wasn't going to miss a Christopher Walken episode, I was a senior in high school, pumped for this episode. People in my life who I didn't know ever watched SNL were talking about the Cowbell sketch, especially at school. Like I had classmates who had no idea that they watched SNL. I know Dick in a Box had the same phenomenon. I'm sure it did. But that's not even the most influential Lonely Island to me. It really isn't. And I'm going to go Cowbell. We're going to move Cowbell along. Dick in a Box is great. I maybe slightly prefer Mother Lover as far as just quality and like how funny it actually is. But yeah, Cowbell moves on. So I'm sorry, John.
I'll take my box and go home.
Yeah. So Blue Oyster Cult Cowbell is going to face the winner of Not Gonna Phone It In Tonight against the introduction of one of the great physical comedians on SNL or anywhere, Chris Farley. So Not Gonna Phone It In Tonight against Chippendales. So let's start again with John. What do you vote?
So I'm not really a big fan of the Chippendale sketch, to be honest. It introduces us to Chris Farley and his power that he could bring to the show. But as a sketch itself, it's very just like, all right, we have a very large man on the cast now, so let's see what he can do. It is very impressive, his dancing and sweating and showing his commitment to the show. So I fully give him credit for that. But this to me falls in the category of like, what is the first big moment for an iconic cast member? And that's why we do that. But I don't know that this is like the best thing that Farley's done on the show, or that I would maybe put that in the top 5. So I think for me, this is a pretty clear Not Gonna Phone It In Tonight, even though, even though I question it a little bit. But I just think for me, if we're talking about really representing all aspects of this show, Not Gonna Phone It In Tonight, getting the entire cast there together to say Live from New York, Steve walking through the whole building, like, to me, there's a lot of really iconic things there that I think are more essential and better than Chippendales.
Yeah, Brad, I've heard varying opinions on Chippendales. It's obviously beloved and it's a quality sketch, but I have actually heard from SNL fans varying opinions. I have no idea where you stand on this versus Not Gonna Phone It In Tonight.
I love Chippendales as a sketch. I think it's great for all the things John said about Farley, the introduction of Farley. I think Patrick Swayze is great. Let's not knock him. I don't know how many people knew at that time Patrick Swayze was an exceptional dancer, and to see him. So you put, Swayze versus Farley, it just makes sense. I think the Nealon's great, and Jan Hook's like Nealon with his dryness is just so good. I do love this sketch. I think it's really, really good. That being said, the Steve Martin Not Gonna Phone It In is one of my all-time highlights of this show's history, and I have to vote for Not Gonna Phone It In.
All right, Bill, it's 2-0 Not Gonna Phone It In Tonight right now.
I don't even know who you all are anymore. Listen, this is one of not only one of the better sketches in the history of the show, an origin story for one of the most beloved cast members of all time. But you can hear it in the audience reaction when you hear the original audio from this, just the shock. You did not have fat guys doing this. Belushi was fat. Belushi was a little overweight. This was a different level. And for him to come out and to take his shirt off in front of, one of the most buff guys, one of the biggest, sexiest man alive at some point in this era, in Patrick Swayze, and to have no embarrassment whatsoever. And to be able, and if that was the only conceit, Fatty falls down. That's talked about a lot now. That's not the only conceit. He then dances. He then holds his own against the Dirty Dancer himself. You can't. I have to move this on.
All right, 2-1? Yeah, 2-1. So Chippendales is still alive, Darin.
I think, as much as I like Chippendales, that sketch, because you do get to see, Farley do like move about like in really ways you wouldn't expect to. I think I'd have to go with Not Gonna Phone It In Tonight as well, just because there's more happening there. Like, they dip into the lore of SNL and the history, and maybe the way people were feeling at the time. With the Chippendale sketch, yes, and it was sort of I don't know if it was a start. I don't know if you would say like this was the star-making sketch for Farley or Matt Foley. I think I would say Matt Foley. Yeah,
this was way before. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but I would say with Foley, that was more of a better showcase of his talents and what he could like do. I mean, yes, with Chippendales, like he's nimble on his feet. He does the thrusting thing, and the belly goes flopping everywhere and all that. But yeah, I think with the Foley sketch was more overall like a more, I guess, more fleshed out sketch. Like I think even like Bob Odenkirk was saying, like he's the one that wrote this Chippendale sketch, and even he was like, I felt like this was kind of more of a let's laugh at the fat man dance type of thing. So yeah, for those reasons, I just think not going to phone it in tonight's a better, just a better sketch.
All right. Respectfully, I disagree with Bob Odenkirk on that. I think there was heart to the sketch. I think it was cool that they had a camaraderie between like Barney and Adrian and all of that. And there's little moments like when they already said that Adrian was the chosen guy, and Farley kind of looks at them and like starts dancing just a little bit and opens his shirt, and they're like, no. You can even hear Jan go, no. Like I think there's little moments like that are fun, but the panel has spoken, not going to vote in tonight, advances. And go back to Region 1.
One thing to say, I was going to say one thing that you guys actually all mentioned that I don't think we specifically said we should. This was like Farley's 4th episode ever. Mm-hmm. And like Bill compared to John, like if John didn't have much do this, or if he did, it was late in the season. Like the fact that Chris Farley did this on his 4th episode ever is pretty amazing.
So go back to Region 1. 1 seed Lazy Sunday, 8 seed Debate 2000, Bill Kenney.
Starting with me on this one. Oh boy. Well, this is really tough, but I think Lazy Sunday is probably, it's definitely Criterion Collection for Lonely Island. But, I didn't get to talk about this one a lot in the last round. It does change the game, and YouTube is brand new. Andy and the guys have talked about how, they couldn't believe it when they woke up on Sunday and Monday and heard that, people were watching it online, because this was not something that happened at this point. And to this day, people go and watch sketches on YouTube all these years later. So for all of that, I have to move Lazy Sunday on.
1-0 Lazy Sunday. What do you think, John?
Yeah, this is actually a tough one. And I do believe that as fascinating of a sketch and iconic of a sketch as the presidential debate is, Lazy Sunday to me changed the game for the show and welcomed in a whole new generation to Saturday Night Live. And because of that, I have to move forward.
2-0 Lazy Sunday. Brad, what do you think?
I agree. Lazy Sunday. I can't be too tied to my old ways. I agree. Lazy Sunday changed the game.
Yeah, pretty much a route there. Darin, is there any kind of argument for Debate 2000? I know it's a strong sketch, but it's going up against a powerhouse here.
Yeah, Lazy Sunday, you got to put it through just because of what it meant to, not only SNL, but the way we ingest media in general. Like it really changed. I know we use the term game changer a lot, but yeah, this sketch really did kind of usher in a new era of the way we take in media and watch and share videos and everything. Like, yeah, it's Lazy Sunday.
It gave us Jon Schneider. There's video somewhere.
Right.
Somewhere
at some point. So for that, Lazy Sunday advances to the Final Four. It's going to take on the winner of this matchup, and I'm going to pick on Darin here to start things off, because he just said that motivational speaker Matt Foley was like the Chris Farley. Probably it's going up against word association, which I know well, so I'm forcing Darin to start things off.
Damn it.
Like Bill Hader and What's That Name? It's just chaos.
Thomas, why do you do this? Wow. Yeah, this is a difficult one, but I think I'm going to have to go with word association, just because, again, the history of SNL and like the way this is like one of the sketches that kind of, went viral before going viral was a thing. And this is one of the sketches that helped put SNL on the map. So I think for that reason alone, I'd have to go with word association.
All right. Our early years guy, Brad Robinson, I'm going to head to you for the second vote.
I am going with motivational speaker. While I love word association, I think, again, like I said, it's one of the best sketches of all time. I think motivational speaker just encapsulates a certain era of SNL better. It's featuring a cast member as opposed to a host as the highlight. And I think, people think SNL, you think Farley. When you think Farley, you think Matt Foley. And I do think that first Matt Foley sketch it's one of the best. So I'm going with motivational speaker.
Yeah, we knew this was going to be close. Bill, Kenney, it's 1-1 right now.
I think I have to go with word association just based on the risks. The whole concept of SNL is created because they want to be anti-establishment. They don't want to be like the last generation, and it's obviously veered away from that in the decades that ensued after that. But this was the moment where you were like, oh, this is not your father's Carol Burnett show. This isn't even your father's Laugh-In. This is a different show that we're seeing on Saturday nights. And this was the beginning of that. So got to go with word association.
Yeah, really good points. Does word association move on? Are you going to give me a vote this round, John?
I will not. I will put word association through here. People are going to think I don't like Farley, but I do, and I realize his importance to the show. I just think that word association, to me, it's like the most important sketch of the, original era of the show, and I'd like to have that representation moving forward.
I think that's a good call. Well, we love Farley, but word association with Chevy Chase, Richard Pryor advances to the Final Four. It's going to have a semifinal matchup against Lazy Sunday. That's going to be very, very interesting. Region 3 matchup here. I picked on Darin last time. I'm going to pick on John here because I know how highly you thought of Reagan Mastermind. It's going up against the Tom Hanks Five Timers Club monologue here. I want you to kick things off.
Yeah, I think now we're reaching a whole other level of greatness, and the Five Timers monologue to me is in a different tier than Reagan Mastermind, which is an amazing political sketch, and I'm glad we were able to talk about it, but it doesn't compare to one of the most important sketches in the history of the show, so I got to go Five Timers.
All right, Five Timers, Brad.
I agree. Reagan Mastermind is an excellent sketch. It deserves a bye. It's one of the all-time greats, but Five Timers is just another level. It's one of my all-time favorites, if not all-time favorite. Five Timers Club.
2-0. Yeah, Darin, does the Five Timers history just like really carry a lot of weight ahead of like a great Reagan Mastermind sketch?
It does. It's Five Timers. It's like the way it was. I mean, Reagan Mastermind's a fantastic sketch, but like, again, like Five Timers, I know we use the term a lot here, it did change the game. It was a game changer. It just, Five Timers all the way.
All right, so Five Timers moves on. Sorry, Bill. I know Smigel, one of his sketches is out now, so you're gonna have to email him and break the news.
I will reach out to him tonight. I'm sure he's heartbroken. But listen, Five Timers, I'll make it a clean sweep. It's the reward that people like us that watch the show week in, week out for decades get every couple times a year. And it started all here. So got to go with Five Timers.
All right. Five Timers monologue from season 16, another entrant to the Final Four. Next, we have Behind the Music, the cowbell sketch against, I think this is another Smigel too. Not going to phone it in tonight. Was he part of that?
Mm-hmm.
No,
I can check if you just give me a second, but go ahead.
Yeah. So
I think he was, yeah.
I'm not sure.
Well, he might be completely out, but if he's not part of,
you want to know who wrote that sketch?
Who wrote the sketch?
Franken and Davis, Smigel, Bonnie and Terry Turner, and Christine Zander.
So I figured there'd be a lot of writers involved, Smigel being one of them. Props to the Turners and Christine Zander and Tom Davis and Al Franken. Great conceit. So cowbell, not going to phone it in tonight. Let's go with Bill Kenney.
I need more cowbell. I mean, this has got to move on for all the reasons we've already said. This is a sketch that's, as they said in the documentary, again, this is something that's played at sporting events when they want to amp people up. Mm-hmm. People who've never seen SNL are sitting there watching Will Ferrell in a shirt 3 sizes too small hit a cowbell. Got to move it on.
Darin, do you agree with Bill here?
Yeah, it's going to be cowbell. It's part of the lexicon. It's a sketch that just has legs like the likes of which we've never seen. It's, again, we did a documentary about that one sketch that's out right now. So yeah, cowbell.
Yeah, John, cowbell's iconic, but like as far as cold opens goes, it doesn't get much better than not going to phone it in tonight.
It doesn't, but I do think we've given that sketch enough love tonight that I'm comfortable going with cowbell here. I would have still put Dick in a Box through. Whichever one got through that matchup to me was getting to the Final Four, so I'm fine with putting cowbell through here.
Okay, Brad, I've said it before. Does it matter that they actually did kind of phone it in that night ultimately?
No, this is an instance for me. John alluded to early when we started the podcast about, essential or iconic or important versus favorite. I could never watch the cowbell sketch again in my life and be fine. I need to watch that Steve Martin cold open. I love it. It's just one of my most favorite moments in the show's history. But that being said, for what we're doing, I would vote cowbell on this. Just that you guys said the legs and what it means. It is bigger, and it hurts me to push something forward that's not as much of a favorite as mine. But cowbell.
All right. So in the Final Four, we have a 1 seed, a 2 seed, a 3 seed, and the 5 seed. So almost Chuck kind of makes sense. The 5 seed pulled a small upset, but not really. So a bunch of powerhouses here. I'm excited about these matchups. We got Lazy Sunday out of Region 1 against Word Association. Holy crap, Bill Kenney.
Ooh, Lord. Yeah, when we're getting down to the minutia of the minutia here, I think I still have to put a Word Association through. Being that, as important as Lazy Sunday is, it's not even the best of the Lonely Island, so I have a harder time putting that through as far as things that you would want to see in a final.
Yeah, John, what do you think about Lazy Sunday's importance versus like a 70s, maybe the Essential 70s sketch?
Yeah, it's tough because I think that is Word Association on YouTube? Like, can you find that, or you'd have to? Okay, because
pretty sure, yes.
Yeah, because I feel like except for us in our like super fan circles or on these podcasts, like I don't know that the general public talks about Word Association unless it's like written about in publications. So I do feel like I do feel like Lazy Sunday is more like talked about, and because of that, I'm like leaning towards that when we're getting to like the nitty gritty of like which has stood the test of time. I think if you're going to break this down and really try to find the best moments from the history of the show, it's no wonder Word Association makes it to the Final Four. But I think like when we're trying to check all of the boxes here about what really represents the best of the show, I think there's a lot of things working for Lazy Sunday. So I'd probably go with that.
Yeah, it's 1-1 now, Darin. I mean, at this point, we are like really nitpicking, right?
Yeah, this is wow. This is like I've been thinking. When you guys are talking, I've just kind of been going over in my head the pros and cons of each one. It's like, wow, I'm really nitpicking here. It's close. It's very close, but I think I don't know because in my mind I'm thinking about everything that was said so far about how Lazy Sunday wasn't even Lonely Island's best pre-tape. Of course, I mean my favorite out of all of them is I'm on a Boat. Of course, as we all know, is a crown jewel. But and of course, Word Association. There's like so much importance there, so much history there. But I think I might have to give it to Lazy Sunday just for the things I've said before, like the way it just. I mean, it changed the show, and again, the way we take in media and video, it changed us. It changed society as a whole. People, you can quote you can mention Lazy Sunday, people kind of understand what you're talking about. I'd have to go with that. Mr. Pibbin crazy vines are Mr. Pibbin red vines are crazy delicious.
All right, Brad, Lazy Sunday's up 2-1. What are we doing here?
This one is so interesting for me. I have had Word Association lose every single round in this tournament to this point. And I have been a proponent of Lazy Sunday for what it meant to the show. But I want to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to put word association in the final. It's funny, Gary and I talk about this a lot, Gary more so than me, but like, SNL for the vast majority of its time was a live show. And so part of me does put a little bit of weight on a live sketch versus a pre-tape. I think Lazy Sunday has had its run in this tournament, but also word association, I think part of the reason people don't talk about it, to John and Darin's point, is one is Richard's no longer with us. Chevy has a horrible rep and people don't like him. And people don't want to talk about the subject matter of the sketch these days. So I think that's the reason why the sketch is maybe not in the discussion as much as it should be, as opposed to a Lazy Sunday, two guys rapping about hanging out on a Sunday afternoon versus something as important, or as the subject matter of word association. So I am ecstatic to vote for word association and try to push it into the finals.
All right, so it's 2-2. So I get to utilize my vote here. I honestly don't think it can be overstated how much of an impact Lonely Island had on SNL, on television, on YouTube. Like it was specifically Lazy Sunday. Like we've talked about the impact of Dick in a Box and other things, but it was specifically Lazy Sunday that did that. And it was a very funny premise, a very funny sketch as well. So it wasn't just, I'm not just saying it because it has like the impact, quote unquote. Like it was very, very clever. But I think at this point, like I will put it over word association just because of just like the overall, like the way it changed SNL. And I think for the better. I think mixing in more, it's always going to be like the magic of SNL is always going to be the live aspect. But I think incorporating more really clever, well done digital shorts and pre-tapes has served the show so well that I'm picking Lazy Sunday to move on, just because it had such an outsized impact on like SNL and beyond. So Lazy Sunday to me advances to the championship. Next matchup we have in the final four, Tom Hanks.
Did you want to insert like cheers there? There's a nice pause there.
I know. I was waiting for like,
True
a
that.
round of applause.
We just
You
stunned,
want somebody.
yeah, just stunned silence. We were all just like taking it all in.
I was just seeing if anybody
It's
wanted
so
to say
hard
anything.
at this point. These are all amazing. It's so hard.
Yeah. So next matchup we have in the final four, the Five Timers monologue, the first one from season 16 that's taken on the cowbell sketch. Of course, Christopher Walken, Will Ferrell, et cetera, et cetera. I want to start with Brad here.
I am voting Five Timers Club. This was at the top of my list. I think this is everything that is great about Saturday Night Live. It's great writing. It's a great host at the prime of their, popularity or importance in pop culture with Tom Hanks. It's a great callback to the show's history with the old host showing up, as well as old cast members with John Lovitz, who had left the cast and comes back in a cameo. Fun, really insider stuff with the Ralph Nader cameo. And as you guys have mentioned before, kind of opening the door to that show within a show and starting something that has as a joke has kept on for how many years on. It's like a legitimate thing now. If you go to an SNL exhibit anywhere or tour or whatever, somebody's Five Timers jackets there. Like what started off to quote, it's like paraphrasing William Shatner in that Star Trek sketch, like what started off as a lark has become a serious endeavor for people. So Five Timers Club for me, hands down, goes in.
Yeah, Darin, I think both of these sketches, both of these bits have really had a huge impact on the show. But in terms of comedy, like does one or the other kind of sway it for you?
Yeah. I mean, both of these sketches are, in the pantheon of SNL. I mean, behind the music. I mean, like I said, all the points we talked about earlier. Like they still talk about it. There's a documentary about it. There was that one moment when Queens of the Stone Age came into the show, and Will Ferrell came up dressed as Gene from that one sketch, just banging on the cowbell while they played Little Sister. And I don't think that's ever happened before in SNL. Where maybe in the early days, I think, but like recently, where like a recurring, or not even recurring character, a character from one sketch appears while the musical guest is performing, and everybody gets it. Why that's hilarious. So I mean, yeah, that sketch is just it's phenomenal. But I think because of what this. I think because of what the Five Timer sketch means to the show and the history of the show and how it still, kind of continues on to this day, I think I'd have to go with Five Timers.
All right, Bill, are you putting Five Timers in the championship?
I am. As beloved as Cowbell is, and for all the reasons that we've all stated, this is something, the way they created this so brilliantly, that can be brought back in modern times, has incorporated in it that you can bring people back, as we saw in December, like people like Tom Hanks and Emma Stone and Melissa McCarthy. And, it's seamless as it goes on for 35 years almost now. This has to be in the championship for me.
All right, so Five Timers moves on. John, does the Lonely Island generation of SNL fans view Cowbell as fondly as the elder millennial, Gen X kind of how does your generation of SNL fans look at Cowbell historically?
You make me feel so young. Yeah.
You are.
Yeah, I don't think they view it as highly as everyone knows the lines and the sound of the cowbell and some iconic words from Walk In, but I don't feel like they see it on the level of some as the Lonely Island shorts, which is fine because every generation has their own thing. But I know it's going through anyways. But yeah, for sure, the Five Timers Club for me makes more sense here. And I guess I'll save my points for the final matchup in this case.
Yeah, so clean sweep, Five Timers Club, which advances to the championship game. And these were the top two seeds of the tournament. So the selection committee did a great job here, ultimately, of seeding, it seems like. So we have number 1 overall seed, Lazy Sunday, Andy Samberg, Chris Parnell, and number 2 overall seed, Five Timers Monologue. So yeah, Tom Hanks, Conan O'Brien, Paul Simon, Steve Martin, Elliot Gould, John Lovitz, Ralph Nader. Let's go to John. Start it off.
Yeah, great job, selection committee, for putting this whole bracket together, except for what's that name? But the the final matchup here. These are two of my favorite sketches of all time. Two moments that I think are so important to the history of the show. My vote in this final matchup is going to be for the Five Timers Club. I think it's the sketch that threaded the show together from beginning to its end. It spans the generations. It's probably the most fulfilling sketch that you can watch, whether it's this version, JT's version, Marty's version. If you watch every episode of the show leading up to that sketch, it means everything to you to get to see this. It means that it makes it your time worth it because you've invested in this world that they have built for you and they're rewarding you with this sketch. So for me, because it threads the entire series, I believe that the idea of the Five Timers Club is so great and it all started with this moment. So to me, this is the best bit in the history of the show.
All right, we're going to go full circle, original order. Bill, Kenney, you get the second vote.
Yeah, everything John says and more. This is Five Timers has to be it. What other show? SNL is unique in its own way, but to have an opportunity, you're not going to get an 85-year-old Elliot Gould hosting a live show, but you can bring him back for a Five Timers Club with John Mulaney. Candice Bergen, so important to the history of the beginning of the show. She's not going to host today, but you can bring her back for a Five Timer sketch. So it weaves so well everything that you could possibly imagine for the history of the show has to be Five Timers Club.
All right, 2-0 Five Timers Club. Darin, what do you think?
Yeah, I think. For a while, I was thinking about it while you guys were talking, and I think John made a lot of salient points that I think I'd have to agree with. I think it sways me to Five Timers Club because it is. Because Lazy Sunday, like I said before, it changed the way. It's a true game changer. It changed everything. I think with the Five Timers Club, it was such a culmination of everything that was SNL all the years, past. It was almost like watching like Avengers Endgame or something like that, where it's just like everything that happened in the past happened in this one sketch, or at least it gave nods to the past in this one sketch. And if you were somebody who had watched all the past shows and episodes, this meant so much to you. And the fact that they were building on its own legacy and building its own, I guess, lore. Like I can't think of too many other shows that have done anything like that. So I think because of that, even though Lazy Sunday, again, as I said numerous times, game changer, I think because of those reasons, I'd have to give the Five Timers.
Yeah, Brad, we're calling it the Tom Hanks Five Timers Club because he was the one inducted and he was the host. But to me, like the star, the glue of the sketch was Paul. No, I'm just kidding. It was Steve Martin. To me, it was Steve Martin was like the glue of the sketch. Like just he had the great lines. He was the one to me that stood out above all. But this is just such a I think it's a worthy winner.
And Paul Simon definitely belonged there.
He did definitely belong there, and I don't think I've ever heard a debate about that either. I think this is I think this is such a worthy sketch.
No, much like John, this was my number one pick for all time best bit. I think look at it two ways. One, look at it in the moment. Season 16, the show itself was just starting to look back, and they just had the 15th anniversary, so. In itself, you're welcoming back old hosts and acknowledging your past and accepting what you've done and celebrating it. And then again, as I mentioned before, timely, great host in Tom Hanks, a great cast, a great sketch. You bring Lovitz back, Easter egg with Conan O'Brien, who's a writer on the show, who's in the sketch. But then you look for what it does moving forward. Lazy Sunday, yes, it changed the game for pre-tapes, but then pre-tapes kept evolving and growing, which is a good thing, throughout the course of SNL. The Five Timers Club's the same. It's the same as it is today as it was this episode. A host gets in, they get in the fifth time, and they go to a club and they meet old hosts and they all make fun of each other and they make jokes. It stands the test of time, the formula, and it's so good. And like John mentioned, just the calling back and seeing old hosts and keeping that thread from season one, your Elliot Gould, your Candice Bergens. It's such a great thing to do. And nothing, I don't know if, again, another show could do that. Like you guys said, I don't think another show other than SNL, it's such an SNL thing. That just helps push it up in my mind. Yeah,
to me, the Five Timers Club monologue, but also like just the idea of the Five Timers Club really captures the magic of this show, the live aspect, the history, and everything. You point back to this one. So I think if I think about like what I love about the show and why I keep watching, even though there's bad sketches, but there's great sketches, like it's something like this that has it's just the fabric of the show that's magical. So congratulations. Tom Hanks' Five Timers monologue from season 16, episode 8. You are the winner of SNL Best Bits here. You were crowned the best bit in SNL history. So before we go, guys, I'm going to give you guys a chance to plug your podcast and stuff. I want to ask you, though, at the same time, how you felt about the outcome, the experience of this whole endeavor, and just where we could find you. John.
This was great. Yeah. Thank you for having me. It was so much fun to do this. I love brackets. It's weird not to do it in March, but it's still a really fun experience to be with all of you guys and talking shop about the show. So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. You could find the Saturday Night Network on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We got current day coverage of Saturday Night Live covering season 50, maybe the best bit season in the history of the show, where we're talking about everything coming together for this major moment. So I'm excited to talk about this anniversary special. I'm not sure when this episode is coming out, but get through all of that and everything we've been doing all season long. So you could find us on all social platforms at the SNL Network and everywhere you look for podcasts.
Awesome. You guys do so much great stuff over there. Thanks. I'm excited about the SNL 50 coverage and beyond. So great job. Bill, how does my seat feel over at the SNL Hall of Fame?
Context, Thomas. Context.
Hey, yo.
I'm over at the SNL Hall of Fame trying to fill your giant shoes.
You're awesome, man. You're doing such a good job.
Well, thank you very much. It's been fun. I've talked to all of you at this point with various nominees. over at the SNL Hall of Fame. So you can find me there and on the Saturday Night Network at various times with my friend John.
And thank you for putting in the work here and doing all this tough SNL research. I know it's painful for
Anytime.
you. Darin, how is this experience for you, and where can the folks find you?
Yeah, no, this was a fantastic experience. Like it was interesting because like I didn't want it. I was trying to pick a lot of like sketches that sort of best represent all the eras of SNL, and also I was trying to put in like my favorite sketches, but also sketches that are important to the show. I thought, and this really kind of whittled everything down, and it's quite a time. It was quite a time was had here, ladies and gentlemen, and you can find me on my little podcast, the SNL Nerds. I do with my good friend, Mr. John Trumbull. We break down the latest episodes of SNL. We talk about SNL-related movies. Sometimes we have a guest on that worked on SNL. We have an episode where we talk to Mike Diva, who's one of the segment directors who directs a lot of the pre-tapes there. And it's a great episode. And we'll probably also be talking about some of the SNL documentaries that came out on Peacock and will come out soon enough. So give us a listen. We're on the Non-Productive Network, non-productive.com. We're on all social media platforms. You can listen to us on Spotify and iTunes and the like. We're on YouTube, and you can follow us on Blue Sky at SNL Nerds, and you can follow me on all the social platforms at Darin Credible. That's Darin Credible.
Yeah, go listen to Darin and John. They do great work over there at SNL Nerds. Brad, my man, thanks for joining us. Always great talking to you.
Thomas, thank you for doing this. Thank you, John, Bill, and Darin. I don't think when we had this initial idea, we realized what a monumental task this was for people to come up with their best bits. I think if we asked everybody here next week to send us a new list, we'd probably have at least half the different, the bracket would be half changed with people's answers. So I just want to thank you guys for even humoring us and taking this on. It was great to get some of the other fantastic SNL podcast hosts on, and thanks for doing this with us.
Awesome. So on this project, the Not Ready for Primetime project, what have you and Gary been cooking up?
Yeah, if you're listening to this now, we've taken a little bit of a break from season 4, and we're focusing on the 50th anniversary with a bunch of special episodes, including this. We've got some interviews. We're talking about the other anniversary stuff. So we're just trying to embrace the 50th like everybody else is right now and having fun. And thanks everybody for listening.
All right. Appreciate it, guys. And a huge thank you to all of you for listening. Be on the lookout for all of the exciting things happening here at the Not Ready for Primetime project, including Bill Swerski's Tournament Talk. For Jon Schneider, Darin Patterson, Bill Kenney, and Brad Robinson, I'm Thomas Senna. So long, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Not Ready for Primetime project. If you're enjoying what you're hearing, please take a moment to rate and review the project wherever you find us. You can also drop us a line to let us know what you liked or didn't and what else you might like to hear in the future at nr4ptproject@gmail.com. And lastly, you can find us on social media everywhere at nr4ptproject. Thanks again for listening. Have a pleasant tomorrow.